Vincent.
Guys, nice to meet you.
Sorry.
Nice to meet you. Morning.
Nick, and I will be your guide for today. Now, besides being your guide, I also want to be your friend, so if you have any questions, concerns, anything, you can let me know, okay? Do not be shy or embarrassed. So now we are going to head towards our first stop, which is going to be the Belshi Lake. Just a quick stop so you can all have some time for yourselves, since it's morning, maybe a coffee, something to eat, or just to enjoy the beautiful view. Of course, I will let you know throughout the way. We are going to see a few interesting things, and thank you all for coming on today's tour. Thank you.
Hello.
Is a very interesting town because it is the most water dense town in Albania, meaning that in this area there is a very large amount of water. Actually, there are a total of 84 lakes in the surrounding area.
So earlier we went to Belshi Lake,
Yeah.
and according to our tour guide, Belshi itself is a place surrounded by bodies of water. Total of 84.
80
80
plus.
plus. Ano ka po shop na gano'n ba siya? Ano sa green and...
Sa gawas is like 15, 16 degrees. So,
Dito.
you can see it.
15, 16 degrees kaya po sa gawas. Even though it's sunny.
So, ang ibang na tao, or di man lapangin man ga-jacket niya po. Parang walang i-remove.
Yeah. Ako, I'm still wearing it.
Surrounding area, you will notice that there are these white tents left and right. These are actually called sera here in Albania, and they are used to have vegetables and fruits inside, so they have good humidity, good temperature. And if you look to your left, you will see a very large dam that is used to be able to distribute the water on the surrounding farmland through metal pipes. Now, this dam is very important to send water to these seras because this area, especially, so central Albania, is very, very agriculturally rich in resources and in every front. That is why it is very important. Now, you will also notice as we move through that there are these metal towers, and I will explain them once we get a bit closer to it. In this area especially, you will notice that there are a lot of seras, but these metal towers, let's say, are the highlight of this area here in Albania. This is the area of Kochov, and you will notice that these are actually oil rigs. Now, you will see some of them are still working depending on the day of the week, of course, but these have been made since communist times. That is why some of them are rusted and have obsolete technology, but of course innovation is happening, and a lot of them are being changed because this area is very, very rich in oil. And what happens, or what used to happen at least during communism, is that it would have been taken out of the ground, sent to the city that is right next to it, and it would have been worked on. But after Albania joined the Western countries, the of course, standard for oil became much higher, so now it needs to be worked outside of the country. So the oil needs to be enriched first before it is used.
Di ba ganyan siya? Kita tamurag mga gravestones sa dalan.
Yeah, and as per research, nagan siya gravestones or like mga lubganan in the middle of the road out of nowhere. These are people nga more na-aksidente or namatay. Dira.
Are they actually there? Wala.
Dili actually. Wala dira ilang lawas.
Okay.
It's just for
Memorial.
Yeah. And if you can see pag ganiya sa video, nagka-metal towers. Ang ingon is like they are
Oil rigs.
So some of them, or maybe most of them, are still working up until karon. So amazing. So this particular area where we are now is very rich in oil.
So this NATO airbase has a very interesting story because originally it used to be a Soviet Union airbase. Now this is for a very interesting reason, something that I already told you. Basically it is due to the oil rigs that we saw earlier. But getting into Albania, it is very hard because we have a lot of mountains, we have long valleys, our roads were not very well developed at the time, so the Soviet Union had issues coming to claim oil. Now, through the sea, it was also hard for them because Albania, being a communist country, still was pretty much surrounded by countries that had Western culture, like Italy, for example. So going through the sea, through Turkey was not possible, and Greece. And what ended up happening is that they built this airbase for easy access into the area. This was, of course, very important because the Albanian people had not seen any planes before. There was not a lot of technology in Albania. There was only a total of 5 cars, and thus the first ever planes that landed here, you can see on the left. This is one of the first ever planes to have landed in Albania. So seeing this, of course, the Albanians were not used to this. Since 1991, when communism ended, of course, Albania has developed a lot of technologies, and we've become a very big and prosperous country.
I think it was the Amadeus Palace.
A quick introduction before we get inside the castle. Of course, inside I will tell you more about the castle, but I wanted to point out the entrance, the main entrance of the Berat Castle. Welcome. Of course, as we get inside, you will see a lot of the influences. Of course, most of these influences are mostly Christian. That is also evident by the sign at the main entrance, which resembles an M that stands for the mark of the Archangel Michael.
After 2008, no more alterations done because it was so Citadel, it's a city or just like a walled city. That's why inside the castle are also houses owned by the citizens of Albania.
Before ang city, gamay na gid siya. Hindi siya like nowadays na city. Yeah, amazing.
Figure over here. This is a very historical, important figure. His name is Constantine. He is Constantine the Great, and the reason why he is considered so great, especially to this castle, is due to the fact that he was the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. And what happened was that since then, back then, hundreds of years ago, Albania was actually not Albania, but it was Illyria. So the people of Albania were also named Illyrians. Now, what happened is that the Illyrian people were mostly pagan. They did not believe in any particular faith. They moved around a lot, so they were tribe people. But what happened is that since Constantine, the Roman emperor, came to Illyria, or to the Balkan Peninsula, and conquered it, he converted 95% of the Illyrian population into Christianity, and his influence is mostly evident in this castle, due to the fact that in this castle there was a total of 42 churches. Today, of course, some of these churches are not there due to the fact that it has been hundreds of years, but a lot of these churches have survived, and we can look at their infrastructure. If you follow me, we will see actually two of these churches, and I will explain to you their infrastructure and story. So
Amazing, 42 castles. Imagine. How the hell did it fit inside the city?
Church mo.
Where?
usual to you all is the fact that these two churches are actually right next to each other, which might seem unusual, but it actually has a very good explanation to it. The one to my left is St. Nicholas Church, which has been constructed around 15th and 16th century. The older of the two is St. Mary's Church, which has been constructed around 13th and 14th century. But it actually is believed to have been had the basement area for even older, so even further in time. Now, the fact that these two churches are right next to each other is very interesting because when we entered the castle, I mentioned that this, besides being a castle, is also a citadel. So the people inside, who lived inside, had a lot more economic prosperity than the people outside, because inside of the castle, of course, they were protected. They were not afraid of any bandits or anyone that would try to rob them of anything. So they had the possibility to sell, to buy, and to trade freely. That is why they started building. Now, since all of them were Christian, all of them started building churches, of course, as they believed that they could pray more efficiently or in their own way, in their own customs, if they did it in their own homes. That is why these are actually considered private churches. Now, the interesting thing about these churches is also their infrastructure, because as you will see, they had a lot of wood implemented into them. Besides the wood, there is also the red bricks, which is very, very popular at the time, and this is for a very good reason. Now, the reason being is that Albania, unfortunately, is a very seismic place, meaning that we do get a lot of earthquakes from time to time, and they can be quite catastrophic. So, just to give you a perspective, actually in 2019, an earthquake hit Albania, and it took 59 lives. So, if an earthquake was to hit back then, you could imagine the catastrophe that it would rain upon the people, because if we cannot withstand such a thing in modern times, back then it was pretty impossible to do so. I could not do so without bowing my head. This is not because I'm tall, but it is actually on purpose, so everybody who enters the church would have to bow their head and pay their respects before they do so. So this is basically implemented on every church, and you will notice, because later we will go through a tunnel, you would have to bow your heads before you enter the area that we are going to see.
We've just seen two of the 42 churches
inside
inside
Berat City.
Berat City. That's why it's 42, because it's just like small churches, not very expecting. Maybe in the
big
Philippines we
ones.
call them like chapels, no?
Or maybe altar, because it's more private.
Yeah.
But this over here is the White Mosque. Now you will see that the White Mosque actually stretches from there all the way to there. It used to be way bigger due to the fact that the Albanian people were oppressed for a very long time. But of course, after a while, we started maintaining them as best as we could due to the fact that they are important to our culture and our history, as we learned from our past. Now, if you follow me, we will also see the Trinity Church and the western part of the Berat.
Oh, it's so nice.
Alright everyone, this is the western part of the Berat city. This over here is the Trinity Church, which is the best preserved church. It has the most well stood out structure. Inside there are a number of artifacts that are being protected very, very cautiously. Of course, in this area you can have some time for yourself, so you can take some pictures. As I mentioned before we entered the Acropolis, there was a total of 42 churches originally and 2 mosques that were built by the Ottomans. We saw the White Mosque, and here is the Red Mosque. Now, it is called such for the obvious reasons of being mostly red, and I also wanted to point out the fact that it has been built with a lot of red bricks, because the Ottomans also believed that the red bricks were very capable of withstanding harsh conditions of weather. Well, no more guesses needed. Church, yes. It is actually a church. It might not look like it due to its structure, but it's also a stand on how resilient the Albanian people are, especially when it comes to their faith. Now, during communist times, Albania had a lot of difficulties when it came to religion, as our communist dictator Enver Hoxha was atheist himself. Thus, he made the country atheist by law. Albania is known to be the first state being completely atheist for almost 25 years. And this is one of these structures that was, let's say, the victim of such a regime, as some of these churches were demolished and repurposed. This one was later on repurposed into a restaurant. That is why it looks way different from any of the churches. Alright everyone, I will just do a quick short explanation on the surrounding area. And of course, then you can have some time, and then we will go down. What you will notice is that over there you will find the Gorica neighborhood, and below us, we cannot see it very well, we will see it once we get down to the city, is the Mangalemi side. If you see, you will notice that there are a lot of windows. Now, actually, this part of the Berat is known as the City of 1,000 Windows. This is due to the fact that back then, hundreds of years ago, people did not have electricity and did not want to waste any more candles. So what happened is, if you can see, it's currently 1:30 p.m. and it's already getting dark on the side of the Gorica neighborhood. Now, this happens due to this very large hill that is covering the city, and when time hits 2 p.m., 3 p.m., it gets completely dark. So people started puncturing holes in their walls to make more and more windows so more and more light can get inside. Until it became a trend, it caught on, and everybody started doing it, such as the neighborhood of Mangalemi. Now, besides these, I also wanted to point your attention towards the fact that Albania, since I mentioned on the church that we saw before this, had a lot of difficulties when it came to religion, but after communism ended, there was never such a thing ever again since then, and we have had religious prosperity. That is evident if you see over there, on the part where there are white lines, there is a church and a mosque about 20 meters apart from each other. So here, true friends can be Muslim, Christian, whatever, it does not matter, as people usually base on each other's character and, of course, behavior. Also, how nice their house is.
Where? We just had delicious lunch.
Yeah, here in Berat.
No, it's not Berat. I forgot. Mangalemi.
Mangalemi. So I ate like pizza and grilled halloumi. It was so good.
Cheese.
I'm not sure if it's part of the city or I'm not sure really.
And Berat. City of 1,000 windows.